Well, Tanner, welcome to the Bridging the Gap podcast.
Yeah,
man.
dude. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Pumped to do this, man. Yeah, you and I have known each other for a couple of years. You've been kind of mentoring me. And so I'm really excited. For those of you guys that don't know Tanner, he's done over $100 million online in sales. He's been doing this for well over a decade. He's been in the online space. He's been doing it since he was probably when I started 18, 19. And so we're going to dive specifically, if you're a young person, how to get started in the online world, escape the 9 to 5, the quote unquote matrix, really just have a laid back conversation on what's working currently in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Because you've been around a long time and things change, right? And so you got to be up to date with the trends and whatnot. And so I'd love to just start off like when did you get your first start in the online space? Because you used to be a trainer, right?
Yeah. So I didn't really start until I want to say 2014.
Really?
Yeah, 2014, because I was 22. So I didn't start quite as young as you. I wish I had. And then I didn't start making money until around 2017 or so.
Okay,
even
cool.
2018, really. And I started because I grew up, played football my whole life and basketball. I was playing Division I football, got hurt. That ended. And then when that ended, I really didn't know what to do with my life. And that's when I started looking into this. And I found a mentor and things kind of took off from there.
Yeah. Who was your first mentor?
David Fry.
David Fry.
He's married to Russell Brunson's, I think one of his cousins or nieces.
Really?
So he knew all about the ClickFunnels world and got me into that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Cause I mean, guys, we'll have to pan around and get like a little side shot, but he's got this huge trophy. I mean, this is like a gladiator sized trophy. How much does that thing weigh? Like 100 pounds, 150?
It's pretty heavy.
It's like 300 pounds,
it's a little
guys.
much. You have to put like 6 nails or something. It feels like to get that up.
But it's for $100 million, right?
Yeah. $100 million in sales. Yeah.
That's insane. How long did it take you to get that?
6 years, give or like right under 6 years. First year we did $1 million. So I had to catch a lot of ground, obviously, because that was my like lowest year per se.
Wow.
But it was basically from 2017 to the end of 2023.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's huge, man. So what were the revenue numbers? Because I've been studying a lot of like break points in businesses and how you have to reconstruct and then build them. So you did $1 million, and then what was like the second?
Yeah, so it was $1 million. Then we went 1 to 10, which was my craziest year. That was obviously a massive jump. You just went to 10x, right? So Grant Cardone would be super proud. Then we did 15.
Okay.
And then pretty much every year after that was anywhere between 20 to 25, right? And so it was pretty crazy. I think looking back, everything was a perfect storm. I didn't realize it though. So sometimes, they'll talk about luck in business, and I don't think what happened, quote unquote, was lucky, but the timing was actually very good because when I was scaling, COVID was on the way. And then so my company was going up every single month, and then COVID super launched it. And I didn't realize that because, I was just scaling. But when COVID happened, I think a lot of people were also looking to go online, right? You notice that? And so revenue numbers just went absolutely crazy. And it's gotten harder since then, I think. It's gotten a little bit more competitive. I think trust is a lot lower, et cetera. But it's been a crazy journey. So I'm really grateful for it.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, I didn't realize that either because I started making money when I was 18 online, right? I partnered with Greg and did like a little partnership launch, and I made like 65 grand in 3 months.
Wow.
And that for me was like crazy money.
Of course.
And I bought
when you start, 10K is a lot. Yeah.
So you know what it's like. So then I, got the car, did all this stuff, but I didn't realize like I kind of had the perfect storm. I had a good audience, a good offer. It was good timing. And so then I kind of struggled for a couple of years, and then I came across closing. I started closing for a guy named Todd Brown. And
I remember that. Yeah. I remember that when you told me about that.
Yeah. That was when we met, I think, actually.
Yeah.
We were at like a dinner party, and I was just curious. The reason I share that is because I think there are certain skills that young people need to acquire before jumping into their business. And so what were some of the things you learned before you had that $1 million year? Like, I mean, did you have another perfect storm where you just jumped in and like figured it out?
Well, so it wasn't in business. It was in regular everyday life, I guess you could say. Okay. So what had happened, first off, I'd done sports since I was 12, and I lifted weights super competitively. And so I think I learned discipline and work ethic through sports, right? So that was number one. Then number two is I studied petroleum engineering, and I had really good grades in high school. I had straight A's in high school. And then I decided to study petroleum engineering while playing collegiate football. So that's very difficult because without playing football, that's a very rigorous major, but with football, it makes it harder. So there was that. Then when that ended and I was trying to start a business, not successfully at all, I was a server. So lots of communication with people, selling, et cetera. Then I did door-to-door sales. And I think door-to-door sales was probably the number one thing because you're trying to sell things to people that don't want what you're selling. And when I actually started an online business and people were interested, it was 9 to 10 times easier because they were actually interested in what I had to sell. And so I didn't know it at the time, but there were all these things I was learning before my business actually took off that had me prepared. So, if you could go back, if I could go back in time and I hadn't had that experience and I just started the business day one, I probably would have had a harder time because I learned all these skills doing different jobs that I didn't realize at the time were preparing me for what I was going to do.
I love that. How important is closing in business? Like having the skill of being able to close the deal?
I mean, it's extremely important, right? Because you can have, the thing people don't understand is you can actually have a bad product and still make money. Now, that's not the goal, but if you can't sell, it's really hard to stay in business no matter how good your product is. And so the number one thing is, yes, obviously the better your product, the easier it is to sell, meaning you don't have to persuade quite as hard. And that's why, Hormozi's book, $100 Million Offers, that's what he's talking about. But most people, they don't come up with an offer that good. It's maybe average at best. And so they're competing with a lot of people. So if they can't sell it, if they can't market it, if they can't persuade people to buy it, they're out of business. And so that's probably the biggest pain point you deal with on a consistent basis with different business owners. Yeah.
And you have probably close to, how many people are working for you right now? Working with you?
60 to 70 right now. We used to have as high as 100, which
I remember that
was a little too much, I think. But right now we got about 60 to 70. Yeah.
Okay. 60, 70. So a lot of people that I help, they're getting their first job in the online world is setters and closers. And so what are some things that as a business owner, I know that you're out of the hiring now, but when you were hiring, what are some of the things that you would look for that maybe somebody watching could use to get an edge in getting hired? Because I know a lot of people want to get in, but it's really competitive nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing is going to be actual experience. And I didn't used to understand. In fact, when I was a server, people wouldn't hire me and they said, you don't have any server experience. And I said, well, how am I going to get experience if you don't hire me? Right. And it used to really frustrate me. But especially as a closer, if you don't have experience, your best bet is to go try to get experience for, however you can, whether it's free or it's very low pay or whatnot. I did door-to-door sales. So that actually was my experience. I didn't realize that at the time, but that was my experience. So that's gonna be number one. Number two then is how you communicate and present yourself. I can't tell you how many interviews I've had where someone shows up and they're in a cutoff shirt or they're on their phone walking around or, they just look disheveled. And I'm thinking, you're competing against everyone else who shows up. So the way you're presenting yourself now doesn't make me feel that you actually want the job. I'd say the third thing would then be fill out the application all the way. The number one thing that annoys me that will make sure you don't get hired, I don't care how qualified they are, is instead of filling out the application, they put see resume. We'll discuss on a call. I'm not going to get on a call with you ever. So I think the biggest thing is obviously experience. If you don't have that, then it's going to be how you present yourself on the call and communicate. And then it's going to be actually filling out the application. Everything else after that is going to come down to just work ethic, right? How hard are you actually going to work? On the hiring side, there's ways that I vet for that and I can actually test people out. But those are really the biggest things I'm looking for.
Those are money. So do you think that people are born with work ethic or they can develop it?
I think you can develop it, but I think you have to decide at some point if you're going to continue to stick with it. So growing up, my dad worked really hard and I didn't realize that was different than most people. My dad was a teacher, so he had to work a lot of part-time jobs to make ends meet because, 40, 50, 60 grand a year doesn't cut it. And I thought every dad worked that way until I got older. I realized, wow, a lot of people don't work hard. So I naturally was a hard worker because that was what I saw. So I just thought that was normal. So my standard was here. My dad's standard was here, and I thought that was here. So I think you can definitely learn it. I think the issue is most people, they don't actually want to do that. And for me, once I got results from hard work, my entire life, I've always continued to try to do that. I've always continued to try to work hard because I don't know any other way to be. And I feel like I get the most benefit out of that. I get the most results out of that.
Yeah. Working really, really hard.
Yeah.
What does a typical day in the life of Tanner look like right now?
Typical day. I'll wake up at 4:30 usually. Meditate. And then I will go to the gym, get there around 5. I usually will train 5 to 8. And the reason it's so long is 2 reasons. 1, I enjoy it. And then 2, I do 2 hours of lifting and then I do 45 minutes of cardio. So it takes a while.
Wow.
I'll come back, shower, start meetings. Meetings will go from about 8 to 1, depending on which ones I go to. I don't always have to go, but I have 2 sales teams. So that's 2 hours right there. Then we have a manager meeting for about 15 to 30 minutes. And then I might have a fulfillment meeting, right? Marketing might be in there too. So that pretty much eats up my whole morning for the most part. After that, then I go into any type of deep work I need to do. So that could be content, creating slides, marketing, helping my managers, those types of things, maybe coming up with a new idea. It's not very consistent day to day because those things can change very quickly. But I would say that is the bulk. And then before the end of the day, what I'll do is I don't know if you can see it, but I have a cold plunge out there and I have a sauna and I've started doing that. I really like it.
It's behind the board. I can see it. Yeah.
That takes me, half hour. And then I'll start winding down for the day, read, relax, whatever, about an hour, hour and a half. And I've started doing that because I realized if you just go work all day and then go straight to bed, that for me, I don't know. It just makes it, I think it makes it a little hard to sustain. I think you need, even if you just have dinner or whatever, that could be your relaxing.
Yeah.
And then I'll kind of rinse and repeat. Saturdays are usually my deep work. So on Saturdays, I'll get up and instead of meetings all day, I just go straight into whatever I have. So weekends are really to get ahead. I'd say Monday through Friday is a lot of maintaining, if that makes sense. And so that would be, I would say, typical.
Yeah. What were you doing when you were waiting tables? Like when you weren't working, right? Because I think a lot of people start off in that job that work with me, or maybe even some of the people that you help get started. And I think there's, like you said, you get ahead when you're not at your current job. Like you get paid for that. So like, what were you doing and how important is that to work on the edges versus
part-time?
Yeah.
I think it's super important. I think most people, they're looking for the perfect scenario. I think the best way to attack business, or if you want to be a sales rep, whatever it is you work just enough to pay the bills. And all your extra time goes into the new venture because all you're doing is you're just delaying how long it's going to take you to get to the goal. There's saving your way to wealth doesn't work. And so a lot of people, let's say they're getting $6,000 a month and they have 1,000 left over, that you're not really going anywhere. In that case, maybe lowering your expenses and then cutting back to part-time. So maybe if you could cut it back to 3,000, you work part-time just to pay that. And then you can spend the other half of the day working on the new skill that will pay more. That's preferable because there's only so much you can lower your expenses until there's not much else you can do. And as you get older, it gets harder because going back to your mom and dad or crashing with your buddies or those options start to go down because everyone's getting older and has families and more responsibility. So in your 20s specifically, or around your age, that's the best time to take risks. That's that's the only time to take risks because you have no responsibility, no girlfriend, no job, no house, no cars. That's the best time. And what happens is as people get older, it's a bigger risk to take. And so that's why a lot of people don't start ventures or start businesses or change jobs because there's more risk involved.
Yeah. And if you were like 20 years old again, you're, let's say, jumped into college, like the majority of people, you're 20 years old and you're trying to figure out how to make 6 figures online and you want to get started knowing what you know now, $100 million. What's the quickest way and how quickly do you think you could start over without, what you know now?
Yeah. So, the quickest way would first not to go to college. That would be the first thing.
Yeah. Quick, drop out of college.
Just get out of college. Unless you want a degree or need the degree for a job, there's no point. I would do exactly what I've done only because that's what I know, right? Yeah. And so that's why they say billionaires who go broke can become billionaires again because they've already done it once. And so they already know the roadmap to get there. They have the knowledge. So what I would do is the same thing I did. I'd go and create a high ticket offer. I'd sell it for $3,000 to $10,000 plus. I'd get a couple sales organically on social media, take that money, put it into ads, and then just rinse and repeat until I hit the revenue goal I want. And that's how I built a $100 million company. Wow. I'm just really good at advertising. I'm really good at marketing. I understand that very well. And there's a lot of good people who are probably better than me, but I understand it well enough that I can beat 80% of people, let's say. And I've been very successful that way.
I love that, man. Do you think that's your superpower is the marketing and the advertising part out of all the skills you've acquired? Like what's your strongest?
It's hard to say. I think when I started, it was marketing and sales both. As your company gets bigger and you get pulled out more, I'm not quite as involved in the marketing maybe as I was day one. So, but I am still pretty heavily involved in sales. But yeah, I'm good at persuasion. I'm good at communication. I can read people pretty well. I did a lot of door-to-door sales, which I think puts you above most people in sales in general because it's much more difficult. Yeah. But yeah, and that's what I enjoy. I enjoy sales more than, let's say, fulfillment or coaching. I can do it. But I really get the most dopamine hit, I would say, biggest dopamine hits of doing sales. Yeah.
Do you still do any sales in your company now?
Not unless I have to or need to, meaning if someone leaves, if someone's got a couple of days off, maybe I'll do it just so they can have a couple of days off or something like that. But it's not something I'm supposed to be doing. I'll put it that way. So if I fire someone or someone leaves abruptly, those types of situations, or maybe if I'm training, maybe I want to show my reps, hey, here's how it should sound, et cetera. But I'm not doing a full day of calls at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. That it wouldn't make sense. Do you do any like bigger deals though that you're working on? Like any like acquisition, like what else are you doing that involves the skill set of sales that as you scale, you still use those skills on a daily basis?
I think instead of selling prospects, you're more selling your team. You have to learn to persuade your team to get on board. I think you also have to learn how to make it a win-win for people. People on your team, at the end of the day, they want to hit their goals. And so the more you can align their goals with the goals of the company, the better you're going to do.
Yeah.
I think at this point, it's more getting my team to perform than how well I can perform. And that's a very hard skill to learn. I think it's probably the hardest, if not one of the hardest skills, because when you're doing everything in your business, it's at 100% capacity. If you have a small business, let's say small business is under 100,000 a month, you got a couple of employees, you're doing all the sales, you're doing all the marketing, you're running the ads, everything's as optimal as possible. And as your company gets bigger and you want to get to higher revenue levels, you have to hire it out. And so what happens is you lose a little bit here and you lose a little there and you lose a little there. And then as more revenue comes in, it just continues and continues and continues and continues. So I think that's been the hardest thing for me to learn, and is probably the hardest thing I do now, is constantly trying to get my team to perform at a high level. So hopefully I answered that question, but I would say it's that.
No, it's really good. And I want to talk about for a minute leadership, because I think it starts with yourself and your own mindset. But what are some of the mechanisms that you found that really get your team to turn and perform at a high level?
I think it goes back to what I just said before, is aligning their goals with yours.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, no one really cares if you make a lot of money. They're not there to make you rich. You might be there to make you rich, but they're not there to make you rich. So I think it's the company's mission. What are they actually doing? Are they bought in on that? Do they like what the company's actually doing for other people or whatever the service is? And then what are they getting out of it?
Yep.
And, that's just how capitalism works. And so if you can make it a win-win, where maybe for them, they want to spend more time with their kids. Maybe they want to make a bunch of money, Maybe they want a promotion. I think it's making sure that you set them up for success.
Yeah.
In that sense, because otherwise it just doesn't really work.
Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed that you do really, really well is casting the vision. Like every time you're talking about the next product, the next thing you're going to do. You're always looking ahead. How important is vision in leadership?
Well, someone has to do it. I mean, you're either going to be an integrator or a visionary. Usually. If I couldn't start a company again and I had to work for someone, I would probably be the integrator. I'd be a COO. I know how to hire, I know how to train, I know how to do sales, I know how to do marketing, I know how to do everything. That's partly because I never had, a running mate, so to speak. So, Hermosi's a great example. He's with Layla, and Layla's always been that integrator. So he's really had a lot of time to be the visionary and push the marketing and do the content and not have to worry about that. That was never really me. So I think I can create a vision, but to be frank, a lot of my time is actually spent integrating at a high level. And so what I've noticed is when you're integrating, it actually pulls from your creativity.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times visionaries people will see and they don't think they do much. And it's true to an extent because they are using a lot of their brain power to be creative. So I think I can do it, but more times than not, the vision that I'm casting is more what direction we're going and how we're going to get there, right? So, hey, if this is the results we're trying to get for our clients, here's what we're going to do. In fact, my next company that I'm starting, that's the goal is I looked at the biggest issues our clients were having. I looked at if it was higher leverage. I looked at, is it going to be a new challenge and all these types of things. And so that's why I started going that direction. I think I've done everything I came to do in consulting. I don't, I've made $100 million. I don't need more money, so to speak. I feel I've had a harder offer to optimize. There's a lot of competition with quote unquote business consulting. There's a lot of other offers that are quote unquote easier. And so sorry if I got a little off track with that, but in terms of the vision, I do try to cast it, but I will say sometimes it's a little hard because of all the integration I'm doing.
Yeah. So, would you say that you don't have an integrator in your company and you're kind of both?
I do, but I think at scale, it depends how big your company is, but really you have two types of integration. You have the systems and the tech and the project management, and then you have the people. And so to be frank, really that's a CMO and a COO, right? You really need those two spots because the COO really ultimately, if done right, they might have a project manager under them and they're doing a lot of the tech and then they're helping with the staff. And I think what I ended up doing is I probably should have hired another C-suite sooner, but my COO is really more of that project management tech / CMO. And so I've always been more of the people person as a CEO. And I don't know, I think I did it mostly because I just don't want to pay someone else and I could have. We're actually on the hunt right now. We're looking for a COO and we're going to slide him fully over to CMO. But yeah, it was mostly just because I think in most companies, you really need someone who's working with the team and the people. That's a full-time job in itself. And then you might need someone who's also doing operations. And it depends at the size, right? It depends on how big you are. But for our company, we've been between 70 to 100 people the last 3 years or so. And so it's a full-time thing. There's always something to do with the staff. There's always something to do with the operations. And so hopefully that answers your question. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. What is the key to a high ticket offer? Because you talk a lot about the high ticket offer. You said that's like the number one thing you would do if you started over is have a good offer. And I think you've talked about this a lot even before Hormozi came out with it. So I'm curious, like, what are some of the things that you teach your clients?
Yeah. Well, what was interesting is when Alex came out with his book, I was doing those things. I just didn't realize I was doing it. He explained it in a way that made sense. And that's part of what being a good teacher is getting other people results. And that was the first time I'd heard someone explain it so simply. I said, wow, that's exactly what I do. So I think the number one thing is obviously what Alex talks about is how much time it takes and how much effort, right? The least amount of time possible and then the lowest amount of effort is what can make more people buy. But in terms of what makes, let's say it's a more competitive offer, because a lot of times when people are talking about it's a tech offer or it's some type of done for you offer, which has scaling issues. The biggest thing is what makes you different? What makes whatever you're selling, whether it's fitness or business consulting or Amazon FBA or whatever it is, what makes you different? And a lot of people, they never actually do that.
Yeah.
So the way a lot of people sell is this. Let's say I'm a fitness trainer and they'll say, I'm going to help you lose weight and it's going to be a customized meal plan, customized nutrition, and a lot of accountability. And that is what they want.
Yeah.
But the problem is when you're selling high ticket, and they go, okay, great. Yeah. How much is it? And they go, it's $3,000. They go, oh, no, I'm good. Because what they're doing is in their head, they've compared what you said to the same thing other people are saying. And so they go based on price. And so a lot of people don't understand that in high ticket. So if I'm a trainer, I have to present it in a way that is different than every other trainer. And a lot of people don't think that through or any offer. So when I was in fitness, because that was my first offer, the way I did that is I said, okay, what do people actually want? And they want to eat shit and they want to have a 6-pack. That's what they want. So I said, okay, how can I ethically give them that? And so if it fits your macros, for most people, it's just calorie counting, right? Calories in, calories out. And so I said, my tagline was how to eat whatever you want without sabotaging results. And it was crazy, but a lot of people, they don't even know what calorie counting is. They don't know what macros are. And so when I get them on the phone, I say, look, most trainers are doing this with your food. I do this. Most trainers are doing this with your training. I'm going to do this. And you're never going to have to pay another trainer again because I'm going to teach you how it works. So this is going to be for the rest of your life. So would you rather pay a big one-time fee or would you rather pay $50 until you die? And that is where they go, oh, so this is how you're different. And then I could sell them. And I would say most clients I work with, especially beginners, they don't understand that. And because they don't understand that, they don't do well because they are just saying the same thing that everyone else is saying on a sales call. And, you know, when you think about it, in sales, the sales guy's job is to convince them that they're the best. So of course they tell them they're the best. It's not enough to just say you're the best. It's not enough to just give them what they want. You have to give them what they want, but describe how what you're giving them is better than everyone else. And a lot of people don't understand that. And that's marketing. That's sales. So I would say that's the biggest thing people struggle with. They don't know how to do that.
Yeah, it's so true. And when I was learning sales, right, from our mutual friend Cole, like I went through his training when I first started, he would say the pitch, right, when you present it should be the simultaneous explanation of why everything they've tried in the past has failed and why this is going to be different.
Right.
Which is basically exactly what we say. Oh, everyone else does this, but this is different. And I think there's something in our brain. I'm not like a crazy like psychologist, but I think there is something in our brain, human psychology, where it's like, if it's new, we're willing to try it. Right. So, yeah, dude, this is super valuable, man. I would say, how important is your health and fitness in your performance?
I mean, I think it's super important. As I've gotten older, I'm in my 30s now, so I'm 32. I started really making money when I was 27. That's when I really started making big money. I've noticed as I've gotten older, if I eat bad or drink alcohol, go to bed late, those types of things that in your 20s, you just won't feel, or you won't feel as much. Because I remember it starts to affect you. And so that's why I work out so often. That's why I like to do the sauna. That's why I like to do the cold plunge. I'm not saying you have to do those things. I'm not way over the top. I'm not Brian Johnson over here, but they do make me feel better.
Yeah.
And I do notice that what it is, it's not necessarily that you can't perform. What it is it affects your recovery. And so if you stay up late or you eat bad food or you have a lot of sugar, it doesn't affect that day. It affects the next day. And so, for example, if you stay out late till 2 a.m, the next day you wake up at 10. And so if I went to bed at a normal time and I'm up at 8 or 6 a.m. or 7 a.m., not only am I getting more work done than you, but I'm feeling better. So I have clearer thought. I can perform. It's that type of thing. So, to each their own, but I think most people, they don't think that through. And so what happens is the quality of their work goes down and the quality of their recovery goes down. And then over time, it affects them a lot more than someone else. And so that person who doesn't do those things gets in more work and it's a higher quality of work. So I think it's super important. And that's why I'm so into fitness. I've been doing it my whole life. I think I was a lot bigger when I was younger because that's all I did. And there's also some special juices I was taking. But besides that, I've always been into it.
Yeah, that's cool, man. What have books played as far as your development? Because I know some people like to read a ton of books. Some people don't read any books. I'm curious, like, where do you find books? And then where do you find your best source of knowledge or leveling up or mentorship?
I read quite a few books. Most books I've read that I like the best are more mindset shifts than actual strategy. In fact, one of the reasons I loved Alex's books when they came out, Hermosi's, was because he had actual strategy in them. I used to get these books that say millionaire mindset or millionaire path, and I'd read it hoping to get some do this, and it would just be, sleep and eat healthy. And I'm going, bro, like, this is basic stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't for someone like me who I would say I'm a high performer and I wanted the knowledge.
Yeah.
So I'd say in general, that's more of what I've taken from books. It's not a ton of strategy. Most of what I've learned has been through experience. It's been through paying for coaches. It's been through trial and error. It's been through going through pain. It's been making bad hiring decisions. Just doing a lot of stupid shit. To be quite honest with you. Experience is going to be the best teacher. It's just usually the slowest. So I don't think books is usually the best source, not only because it takes a lot of time to read the book, but then you might have read a book that's not really the best. And it's the same thing with YouTube or anything else. There's a lot of great info, but the problem is you have to go find the info. There's 10 videos or 100, narrow it down to the ones that are correct, guess, because you don't really know. And so for me, it's really just been pain. Yeah. I've always just, paid for stuff. I like books. I'm not against books. I read a lot, but I don't think books are the best source of information because like anything else out there that's free or cheap, it usually takes more time to go through it. Right?
That's so good. Yeah. Yeah. Keep going.
So, I'm just a proponent of pain. If you don't know something, when I started my business, I spent $50,000 in the first 6 months and people go, well, where'd you get the money? All the money I was making organically, I was just paying new coaches and most of the programs were 3 months. And so people go, well, why'd you have 6 coaches in 6 months? Because I knew after 30 days, I was going as hard as I could, that what they were telling me either was wrong or I was doing it wrong, but I'd already tried. And I said, well, there's no point in keep beating my head against the wall. Either they're wrong, so I need to find the next coach, or I'm an idiot and I've tried doing it the way they said, but I can't. So I need to move on. Wow. And people will just waste so much time in life beating their heads against the wall. When in reality, it's just you have to go and find what you're looking for and you have to be willing to make mistakes. Something I got in a bad habit of once I built this company is you lose that edge you have as a beginner where you have nothing to lose. And so you start trying to plan everything out and not make a mistake and all these things. But really, for example, if you wanted to go start a tech company, people will go, well, how do you do it? And they read these books and they watch these videos and they do this. And the reality is just go fucking start it. Go figure it out. What do you need first? You need the app. Okay, so how do you do it? You need a developer. Go find developers. How do you do that? Type in Google, how to find a developer. Start watching a video. Go send an email. You know, it's just taking those actions. No one actually knows how to do anything the first time. They did the same thing. They were in the same spot as you. And so I think a lot of times we overcomplicate. In fact, I've done, on my Facebook, there's a pinned profile post. It's not up there now. I think I switched it with Hermosi's, but there was a post that I paid 30 different people that sold their companies from 40 million was the lowest all the way to 3.2 billion. And every person who had an idea, it just happened. They didn't plan it. They just said, yeah, so I saw this and I thought it was a cool idea and then I did it. And I said, yeah, like they didn't plan it. They didn't do market research. They didn't do anything. They just had the idea and then they went and executed on it. And I think a lot of times that's how life is. You just have to see an idea and then you go execute on it. And if you don't know how to do it, you figure it out. And so like this next venture I'm in right now, it was the same thing. And I wasted a lot of time trying to make it perfect when in reality, I could have gotten, faster results, maybe 6 months to a year sooner if I just gone and started taking action. Right.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest, clear, roadblocks? I know that everything happens for a reason. You wouldn't be where you are without them, but what are some clear, dude, I definitely fell in a hole there and took me a little bit to get out. That's things you'd want to pass on to me or other business owners that are building.
I mean, the biggest one is always I waited. So from 22 to 25, I never hired a coach or consultant. And the reason I didn't do it was one, I was pretty arrogant, meaning everything I'd done up to my life, I felt I'd done on my own at that point. So I thought, why would I need to pay for help? I've done everything else on my own. But it was different. It was school, it was sports, dating, those types of things. I don't think you need that much coaching on. Maybe some people disagree, but for me, just, hey, go put an effort, try again. You fall down, scrape your knee, get up, go again.
Yeah.
Nothing too complex.
Yep.
When you start a business, there's just so much information out there and there's so many different strategies and things you can sell that I didn't know where to start. And so what I did is I did nothing pretty much. I thought I was doing work, but I wasn't. In fact, from 22 to 25, I was building a bunch of stuff and I didn't really sell anything. I didn't even try to sell. I didn't even know how to sell. I thought the way you sold stuff online was just post a link in your bio. And I thought that's how you got rich. And so my biggest regret is that if I had hired someone at 22 instead of 25, and you take the same trajectory that I took with this business, so let's say $1 million, 10 million, 15 million, that's $26 million that I could have made if I just started sooner. Right. And then also take into account the internet was still newer back then. So I probably would have made more because as it gets older, it gets more competitive. It wasn't as competitive back then.
Yeah.
So by being arrogant, the thing is I go, oh, well, I don't have 10 grand, so I can't spend 10 grand. Instead of being resourceful like an adult and going, okay, if this is really the route I want to go, how am I going to make it happen? And then doing whatever it takes. And a lot of people just don't have that mindset. They just want to hand it on a silver platter or they don't want it to be inconvenient.
Yeah, they don't want to do the work.
Yeah.
They're not willing to get their hands dirty. There's so many people I meet, they're not willing to get fired. They're not willing to literally fail dozens and dozens of calls. And you probably failed hundreds of times on the doors when you're knocking. Right. And it's the same in sports. It's the same in everything. It's just how do you think someone who's maybe a little bit more soft, because we live in such a soft generation, the younger people, what can they do to toughen up a little bit?
You just got to do hard shit. I think a lot of people don't want to do hard things because they don't understand the benefit that comes on the other side of that. A lot of people, I see this on the internet a whole lot is, hey, I'm able to make all this money working 1 to 2 hours a day. I see that shit all the time. And that's a total facade. And it's a total lie in the sense of you're not going to get fulfillment out of that. I did that. So we were just talking before you got here. I went on and traveled the world for 6 months.
Yeah.
And he can tell you, he was with me. That was probably the most miserable I ever was because all I did all day was think about myself. The whole day. And when all you have to do is think about yourself, you'll be amazed at how many problems you'll find with your life. Oh, this fucking door, this water, why is that table a square instead of a circle? You'll just start making shit up.
Wow.
That's not a problem because if you're not focused on fixing other people's problems, then you're going to create problems. And that's why a lot of times people will talk about not being busy is bad in the sense that that's where people get into dumb shit. That's where people start getting into drugs and drinking and all this partying. And I'm not saying that's bad per se, but that's where you can start going down a different path. But when you're busy and you're regimented and you're disciplined, you're not going to have time for that. And then you're usually focused on other people's problems. And when I feel my best is when I'm trying to help other people, when I'm actually trying to serve other people. When I feel my worst, I'm just thinking about myself. I'm not saying you can't ever do things for yourself, but I think most people have it backwards where they were where I was and they don't know because they're not rich. They're poor. So they think by becoming rich that they're going to feel different.
Yeah.
But the rich people, the secret we all have that poor people don't, is they know that that's false. But poor people will never know that. So they might go their whole lives thinking that if I had just been rich, I would have been happy. But once you get here, you realize it doesn't make you feel any different. And that's when you actually start the real growth. That's when you go, well, man, if this isn't it, then what is it?
Yeah.
And then that's where you'll start hearing people say, it's not about the result, it's about the journey. And the journey mean it's true because you don't learn anything from getting to the goal.
Yeah.
You learn everything between where you are and the goal. So for example, if my goal is to hit 1 million subs on YouTube, which is a goal of mine long term, I'm at 21,000 right now. I'm terrible. I'm not going to learn anything once I get to 1 million. Everything I'm going through right now is where I'm learning. You know, me and Thanasi, my video editor behind the scenes or manager or king or whatever you want to call him, video king. I get frustrated. I don't know how frustrated he gets because ultimately it's not his content, but I get frustrated when it doesn't do well, especially when we spend a lot of time. But then we go, okay, so what can we do better? How can we fix this? How can we fix that? Not only that, but how long can you stick with it? One thing I am proud of is I stick with things. So I've posted 1,300 YouTube videos. I have 21,000 subs. That's terrible ratio. That's fucking horrible for that amount of videos, right? But I'm sticking with it because I don't have any other option. There's also other things I can throw in there as an excuse as, well, I've been running a business. I'm not a content creator, whatever. But
yeah,
I think that's where you learn stuff. And a lot of people, they miss that. And they just want the end result, not understanding that the end result won't make them happy, but they won't learn anything. And so when you die, and I really believe this, is that, and I've seen it, when I got a Lamborghini and I was living in Thousand Museum, which is one of the most expensive places in Miami. And I was doing $1 million a month. This was, 4 years ago at the time. That was, my life goal. I remember telling people and putting years and years of my life into hitting that goal. I mean, years. And I remember telling someone and they just looked at me and said, yeah, like congrats. And then they turned away. And I thought, dude, you know how hard I had to work to hit that goal? And it was at that moment I realized no one cares. And then I go, well, if no one cares, why do I care so much? And I cared because I thought it would make me feel different. And then when it didn't, I thought, well, then why even bother? Why not just be a complete degenerate and just do whatever you want? And then the reality is because all the growth, all the development, the things you're going to learn about yourself and who you really are is by doing difficult things and keeping those promises to yourself. And so you don't learn anything from easy things. You don't learn anything from taking the easy route or from just doing hedonistic shit all the time.
Yeah.
You learn from doing hard shit. So sorry if that was a little elongated, but I think people have it backwards on what society says you should focus on and what you actually should focus on. And, the one thing I have is a lot of empathy because I've been through it. And so I understand if someone doesn't understand what I'm saying, I get it because I've been there, but I have a lot more empathy for people and where they're at because I used to be there. And I think some people, you got to let them go on that journey, but that's where I've ended up on mine.
Yeah. That's cool to see, man. Cause I remember meeting you and you were doing the Lambo and doing all this stuff. And I thought it was sick. I was like, man, I'm going to get there one day. And dude, I actually really appreciate you sharing what you have because even though I haven't gotten the Lambo yet, I haven't done those things yet. Like I have this peace now. It's like, yeah, maybe I'll get the car, but it's not going to change my life. It's not going to change who I am. And like you sharing that, I think is like really cool to see because now I'm actually enjoying the journey more instead of me just like grinding, hustling. I'm like, I get to the top and I'm like, shit, is this really it? I've had many moments like that, but that's one of the things that I heard Tucker Carlson, he was the first speaker at the 10X Growth Con, and he got on stage. He said like, guys, all this success is great, but it's not about the success, not about the actual achievement. It's about the journey and the process. And he's like, I'll give you an example. And he told the story of this guy that he grew up with who was like, dude, I'm going to build $1 billion company. Spent 30 years, built his company, sold it for $2 billion.
Wow.
Literally $2 billion check. Like didn't have to like do any work for the company. Didn't get paid an installment, like $2 billion.
Wow.
Ruined his life. Because he lost all that purpose, all that meaning, all that giving.
Yeah.
And then everyone just started attacking him in his life for the money, right? Because I mean, I don't know the exact story on that, but that's what the thing he lost was. Like he got 2 billion, but what did he lose? Right. Yeah. And I think like one of the things that I love about this guy that I follow, Dr. DeMartini, I think you would like his stuff. He says the masses live in the perception of gain and loss. The masters don't live in that. They live in they live in transformation. That like, if you go through something, you're going to transcend that.
Right.
Versus like gain and loss. So that's just super cool to hear, man. And as we're kind of wrapping up, like I'm curious for you, what have been, because you've spent how much money on personal development, coaches, all this stuff, like a lot.
25, 30 million on ads and then another 3 million on coaching.
$3 million on coaching.
Probably anyone you know, I've paid them to some degree, probably. I feel almost everyone I've paid something. Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. And so you probably know a thing or two about picking the right person for the right season. Cause I think a lot of the times it's about finding the right coach for the right problem you have in your business. Would you agree?
Right. Yeah.
Or like what is like the key with picking the right coach?
Yeah. So I get asked this all the time, and I actually teach this on sales calls, because if people are selling something similar, they're all going to tell you they're the best, which is what leads people to confusion, because they go, well, everyone sounds good, but who do I pick? And it really just comes down to 3 things. So the first is experience. Mm-hmm. So if someone is looking at hiring me versus another business consultant, I'll say, well, I've done 100 million in sales. What have they done? Mm-hmm. And if it's less, I say, okay, doesn't mean they can't help you, but who are you going to bet the horse on, me or them? Mm-hmm. Right. So that would be number 1 is revenue, experience, years in business, et cetera. Number 2 is going to be specificity. So I built a multi-million-dollar fitness company. I get a lot of trainers for that still. Why? Because they know I have expertise in fitness versus just overall general business consulting. It's the same reason you want to hire Tiger Woods to teach you basketball, and you want to hire Michael Jordan to teach you golf. Mm-hmm. 2 of the greatest athletes on earth, but they don't have specific expertise. So that's going to be number 2 is, have they done what you're trying to do specifically? And then number 3 is then going to be the level of attention, right? So if I had the option to work with Bill Gates for 5 minutes or Bill Gates' team for a year, I'd pick his team. Mm-hmm. Why? There's no point. What am I going to get in 5 minutes versus a year with his team? And his team is going to be, a resemblance of him to a degree. And so I'd rather do that. And so if you look at those 3 things, what I found is actually that is what has helped me make better investment decisions. I don't take sales calls anymore at all, because it's pointless, because I know what they're doing. And they could have the best sales pitch in the world, but I don't actually know if that's a good product, right? Until I try it. And so what I do is I just try to mitigate my risk when I try it. Can I do a 30-day trial? Can I try it for a day? Can I do it for a month, et cetera? And then I just point and shoot. And if it works out, great. And if it doesn't, I learn what not to do. And I would say people need to also have proper expectations. Out of the 3 million I spent, if you're looking at what actually helped me generate more money, like specifically, probably 20%. 80% was, oh, that didn't work. Don't try that again. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's okay. That's just part of the beast, but you got to be okay with that.
Yeah. Dude, that's great. There's 2 things that I thought of that I would be curious your opinion on that I think is important when picking a coach. I think it's important, but I'd be curious like where they fit in the 3 that you shared. The 2 would be, number 1 is like relevancy. Like how up to date are they with the trends? Maybe they did something 5-10 years ago, but dude, shit changes so quick now. It's like, oh dude, like there's so many people that are just pushing the same shit from a decade ago. It's like, bro, you haven't actually been doing this recently. It doesn't fucking work anymore. Right. I'm just so sick of it. So relevancy. And then the second would be like, okay, you did it, but can you teach me to do it? Because like there are some people that are unconsciously competent,
right?
That are really good at it themselves, but you try to like I've talked to people that are just geniuses. They make a ton of money, but they try to explain it to me, I don't get it.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So like, how important are those 2 in the equation?
Well, in terms of relevancy, you have to be somewhat attached to the business. So something I'll do at times, we were talking about, I don't have to do anything in the business if I don't want to, but here and there, I might take a coaching call just to stay up to date with what's going on. Because if I talk to my clients and I see the issues, it's easier for me to go back to my team and say, hey, we should do this, we should do that, right? So yeah, I do think it matters. If you're completely unaware or you're selling the same thing from 5 years ago and you haven't stayed up to date, yeah, of course, it's not going to be any good. In terms of competency, that's just being a good teacher. Some people aren't good teachers. Being a good teacher is completely dependent on the student's result. It has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Right. So a sign of a good teacher is that the people he teaches actually excel past him. If no one excels past you, it may mean you're not actually that good of a teacher, because if you were, there'd probably be people who would do better than you. Right. And it's not a bad thing. It's just, that's just reality. So yeah, I think they're both super important. But end of the day, I think it goes back to what I said before, is if you can focus on those three things, experience, specificity, and attention, that will usually lead you to the people who have relevancy and competency.
I love that. That's fire, man. As far as mindset goes, and this will be the last question, and then we'll wrap things up. Where have you found the best material for developing a mindset to make a ton of money and be wealthy?
I think Meditations by Marcus Aurelius is a really good book. You might need to get a version where they break down the words more. I really like that book. I think Self-Deception and Leadership is probably one of my top 3 books ever. And it talks all about, I can't even describe how you just need to read it.
Self-Deception,
Self-Deception and Leadership by the Arbinger Institute. I might be getting the words backwards. It might be Deception and Self-Leadership, but it's one of the best books I've ever read. And then I think the last one is just having high-level friends. I've been really blessed, I think, overall to, I talk to Cole on a good basis. I talk to Alex on a pretty consistent basis. And, I have other people in my Rolodex I can talk to. And so I think getting wisdom from them as well and listening to what they have to say has actually been some of the best advice I can get. But yeah, that'd be my answer.
That's good, man. And then the follow-up question on that, because that was such a good answer. The high-level friends, I think, is huge. Like, you are who you hang out with, right? Show me your friends, I'll show you your future.
Right.
One of the things that I do okay, but I want to do better at is with these high-level friends that are literally like multiple, like 10x jumps away.
Sure.
And I'm, young, and not as experienced. I'm not at their level. What are some of the things you did for the mentors you had that allowed you to get around them more or be able to add value? Because you can't just be like, yeah, what can I do?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that doesn't work. So it's like, what are the specific examples or things you would give someone like myself or other people in that high level?
Be someone that they want to know.
Yeah.
So the story of how people ask me this all the time, how me and Alex met. So how we actually met is I was doing very well in the online space, and he reached out to me I don't know what he reached out for, but he reached out to me and I ignored him because I was, at the time, I was very competitive still. I thought if someone else did better, it would affect my sales, which it doesn't. But so I ignored him. And 2 years later, we got in a thread with some other high-level players, and he reached out again, but he had my number this time because he reached out on social media. Now he had my number, and I didn't want to ignore him because I thought, well, this is going to be awkward because he's in the group with me, et cetera. And we got in a call, and he didn't want anything. He just wanted to get to know me. But the reason I think he wanted to get to know me is he'd heard about me. Right. So that's why we connected. I don't think if I wasn't doing anything at a high level or what he perceived as a high level, that he'd want to get to know me. And so I think a lot of people worry about, well, how can I add value? The reality most times is you can't.
Yeah, become valuable.
You can't add value.
Yeah.
And to be frank with you now, what value could I really add to Alex that he can't get on his own? Maybe a connection, right? Maybe I could get him on a podcast or a connection, something like that. But to be frank, what can I really offer him at this point that he can't get? So I think you have to continue to level yourself up. And then what will happen is as you level yourself up, people want to know you. And then those connections will happen. I think a lot of people spend a lot of time networking, but to be frank, if you met me at a networking event, let's say, and it's a brand new person, they're like, yeah, so I just started my business and this and that. Great. That's awesome. There's nothing wrong with you, but I'm probably not going to be hanging out with you a ton not because I don't like you or whatever, but it doesn't bring value to me, and I have a busy life and I have a lot of things to do. And so people are just naturally going to hang out with others that they can pull value from. That's just normal, right? It doesn't always have to be that way, but 9 times out of 10, your closest friends are people where you get something out of the conversation, or they give you context, or you really admire something they do, et cetera. And so I think becoming the person that you want to be or who you think you should become is how you will attract other people to you. Trying to go in networking, I think, is a complete waste of time, and it pulls your energy away from your goals and tries to put it into other people when those types of people are not impressed by those things in the first place. Like they want to be around other high-level people, so become a high-level person. Yeah,
I love that, man. Thanks for sharing that, dude.
Yeah.
Because I think that's one of the things that I've reflected on too, and I've noticed is that the people that I guess are attractive that you want to get to know, they're just doing cool shit. They're always doing, and it's just like new. It's like, what are you up to today? Oh, you're doing something new. You started this. And I think the people that are just kind of in their lane that haven't really, no one wants to stay around stagnation because there's really no such thing. It's either you're decaying and you're really decaying or you're growing.
Correct.
So super grateful that you took the podcast because guys, I hit Tanner up like last minute and shouts out to him for literally putting the whole thing together. But I'm curious, dude, like why did you decide to want to sit down with me? Because you're super busy. You have all this stuff. Like I'm just curious personally.
I mean, I know you is one. I think two is I think you've made good progress, especially for your age. Mm-hmm. I mean, I keep an eye on it to a degree. I mean, I'm not looking at your stuff every day or like, checking out your story every 5 minutes, but I think you made good progress. And number three, selfishly, is like content, right? Yeah. So that's the honest answer. But yeah, I mean, if I didn't know you and you just hit me up or something, probably not. But I think you're making good progress. I think you're trying, which I respect. I respect people who work hard. I think everyone around the world does. And then I know you, and it's a win-win in these situations, right? Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't necessarily that we couldn't sit down. It's just sometimes the timing, right? Because I already have a pre-planned schedule and stuff, but I mean, you're leaving tomorrow, so what the heck? We'll make it happen. Let's go, man. Cool. Well, thanks for coming on, man. Thanks Tanner. It's been awesome having you. Bro. Guys, make sure you tune in to Tanner. Go give him a follow on YouTube. We got to hit this 1 million goal, so make sure you go subscribe. Is it just Tanner? Just Chidester? Tanner, Chidester, however you want to say the last name will work. Yeah, you'll find it. You'll find it on there. And then also check him out on Instagram. He's got great content. I love what you're doing, by the way, with like bringing people in. Like I see people like face-to-face content. We're breaking people's businesses down. I love that type of stuff. And yeah, man, anything else you'd want to leave with the audience? No, just, I think the biggest thing is just take action. And, if you don't know what to do, hire help. You're not going to figure it out on YouTube. I mean, everyone's going to say that, but you're not. Just pay someone who knows what they're doing and follow them and work your ass off until it works. Sweet, man. Yeah. Cool. All right, guys, listen, I know you guys enjoyed the podcast. If you're not subscribed to Bridging the Gap, I'd love for you to just share this with someone. We bring this podcast to you completely for free. Share it with someone that you feel like could resonate with the content, and then subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we'll see you guys next time.